Hi everyone, Joshua Hanlon here, and today I'm in the LEGO Idea House, and I am joined by the head of the LEGO Idea House. So if you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your position here.
Yeah, I'm Jette Orduna. I'm head of the LEGO Idea House and the LEGO Group Archives as well, actually. The archives are not in this building, therefore it's pretty hidden. But we have an archive as well with documentation and with LEGO sets, obviously. But the Idea House consists of 3 buildings, mainly. It's an old wooden toy factory. It's the family home from Ole Kirk when he founded his company. And it's the first administration building when sort of the family home became too small to house a family office and a shop. So actually the Idea House is formed by these 3 buildings.
And so which one are we in right now as we're standing here?
Now you're actually in the middle of nothing, because this is a building between 2 buildings. This is a building between the wooden toy factory, which is in this direction, and the family home, which actually starts right here, as you can see from outside, that you see the backdrop of the house. So actually this is just a building that connects these buildings.
But there are exhibits in here, and so this is kind of where we start with the journey of LEGO, so to speak.
Yes, yeah, it actually starts with the founder and how he moved to Berlin in 1916. He got married, he bought a workshop and a family home, and how he built it up and what he did before he actually started making wooden toys, because he was a carpenter and not a toy maker from the beginning, and he never thought he would make toys if you had asked him in 1916. And these are some of the examples of drawings of farms he actually built. So you can actually see his signature everywhere, like here. It's O. Kirk Christensen in 1925, he did that. And it's actually a building tradition that is very famous in Denmark. It's called Better Building Practice. And the house, the family home, is actually also built in that style, which is basically a quality built made out of bricks and very symmetric. So it's very, very high quality building. And obviously he was a quality focused carpenter, so he wanted to build houses in that building style, you could say.
So was this a style of building, a style of house that was popular during kind of a certain time period here in Denmark, or is this?
It was in the beginning of the century, in the 20th century, in the beginning, that was a very dominant building style for farmhouses and smaller houses.
Kind of one of those ebbs and flows of architecture as you see in different countries of a lot of buildings of the same style that were all built at one time.
Yeah, exactly.
Fascinating. Well, we can kind of walk and talk here through the exhibits. I know this area was kind of recently redone, so if you want to talk about
house.
Now we've gotten into an actual building.
Now you're in a building.
But yeah, if you want to talk about kind of how this was recently redone here and what was changed in here.
Yeah. We started making the first exhibition in 2005 when the LEGO Idea House moved from Multihuset, that connection building that are at the hotel where the Idea House was first. It was opened there in 1990. And then when we sold the Legoland Parks, we sold the Idea House along. So the Idea House moved here, and we had to start from scratch. But I'm really glad we moved here, because this is the place where everything started. And it's really, really nice. Exhibition-wise, it's not very good because it's small rooms. You cannot create an exhibition like you want to. You create an exhibition that is made for the room, especially because the room decides the exhibition here. It's not the other way around, which you normally would do.
It's like with a lot of historical homes in the U.S., like they'll take a president's house or something like that and turn it into a museum. Well, that's great, but you also then have to work with whatever architecture or crazy stuff they had inside there.
Yeah, and the house was actually destroyed, you could say, because it was very in a bad shape in the 90s. Not because they didn't take care of it, but there was fungus in the house. So the interior was moved out of the house. So when we moved here, it looked really, really boring. And was not really a home anymore, but more an office space. So we had to work with creating it not back to how it looked, because we don't want to create a memorial home with furniture from 1930s and whatever. We wanted to create a modern museum, basically, in the frames of an old house and in the frames of a family who actually lived here. So this is recreated with focus on this. We are Ole Kirk work with wood, so the backdrop is wood, and actually we work with the shelves we had before in the previous exhibition. This was remodeled 2 years ago. We started on the work with this. So we actually started working with wood as a backdrop and also with colors and actually creating a scenery where you go from simple, few colors, and the more you walk through the exhibition, the more colorful it is. So actually you could say you end in Times Square in New York with a lot of colors in the end. So actually there is a development of the company where it goes from being local, simple, to becoming international, to becoming global. It's reflected in the way it's built up. So there's a lot of thinking going on behind it, and then the adaptation to the rooms.
Yeah, I love that so much because that's such a great kind of symbol of museum design when you do those subtle things like that as a visitor, you might not even realize it's happening at the time, but then you end it and you're like, oh yeah, that really all worked together really well. Somebody put some thought into that.
And we did the same when we created this. I had a really, really bad feeling when I was asked to paint the roof or the ceiling black. I was really having a hard time saying, oops, can I do this? And I had to go to the cinema to see, okay, but that works actually, because I have destroyed the roof or the ceiling by painting it black. You can never make it white again. It's white here, but it's not white in there. So actually, we actually also destroyed something in creating something. And you have to be very, very careful what you destroy. You could say the ceiling is new, it's not the original, so fine. But you have to take care of what you're destroying, actually.
And make sure you preserve things along the way. Don't just come in and just wreck everything that's already there.
Pull everything out. Actually, you can see, why do you have steps here? Well, we have steps there because that was the living room. That's actually the dining room, and it was actually closed here, and you had to walk in from the other side. So that's why there's stairs. There's also a little basement just below that area. So we didn't change that because that's actually part of the building history. The few things that are still there, the exterior is the same, but the interior is all new, basically.
Yeah, so if we keep walking here, then you can see some more of the exhibits. And so talk about kind of design in terms of how you decided where to place these exhibits and kind of who you have in mind you're designing for, because this museum is not available to the public. You know, people can't just walk in here. So obviously that's kind of a different demographic than if you were just a public museum.
Yeah. We had a lot of discussion with the owner, Kjeld Kirk Christiansen, when we moved here, because obviously we wanted to create this to be a public place, but you can't. You have all these little doorways, you have all these narrow aisles, so you cannot actually make it public. We also, if you want to make it public, you have to block everything behind glass so you cannot touch it. But we also wanted the employees to be able to touch. We're not happy about it, but they should be able to. So we actually had a lot of discussion of what are the pros and the cons, and we decided this is for internal purposes only. And then you could say later the Lego house was erected to accommodate the public wish for also experiencing the history and what Lego is all about. So when we lay out everything here, it's actually trying to show, now it's so many years ago that this story was created, so we know the highlights here. So we actually saying, what are the highlights we really want to show, and how can we make it fit into the room? The way we built up the exhibition before was actually that everything was in the middle of the room. If you are interested in museum and how you built them up, you actually know you should never put anything against the wall, because that's making boring. You're never supposed to see everything at one time.
Right, it doesn't have that variety as you kind of explore.
But then we had a lot of trouble with having a lot of people here, maybe 50 people, and you had to point and say, behind that you can go. So it didn't work, so we actually had to say, but these are small rooms, and we have a story to tell. And we have so that everyone can see the same as I'm talking about, you can see it. And I don't have to point you, have to go that way to see it. So actually we put everything against the wall, knowing this is not the way to do it.
But obviously there are exceptions to those rules, and when you're in a unique situation like this where it's not open to the public and everything, then you can do things that suit a specific purpose.
Yeah, we can. and there's not a lot of ventilation. There's a lot of things that aren't that a modern museum would really require here because it's not built for that purpose.
Right. Great. Well, let's keep walking so we can see a more a modern part of the museum then, and make sure we show some of this off. So here you see displays of what's more of the original wooden toys.
We actually moved it because before it was standing in this direction, and now we moved it out here again because you get a flow, like you walk in and you walk in this flow, so the history develops in that flow. So it's very much on purpose as well. And we have a little meeting room here and a little meeting room there, just to get people to feel this is, if you are an employee, I'm very welcome here. And it becomes a place where you actually walk in a lot of times, and come here, you might see something you didn't notice the last time you were here or you never thought about. So to me, it's very important that the LEGO employees come here on a daily basis. And meeting rooms are very good to get LEGO employees to come here because we are sparse of meeting rooms. So that's a good idea.
But that's a really good point. I think this is something that a lot of museums kind of struggle with, is getting people to see it as more than a place where it's just displays. You know, you can have activities there, you can do other things that really get people involved. And so having the meeting rooms and everything is a good way to get people to think about it as kind of a very active area.
Yeah, we want the employees to feel at home here. So it's also, as an employee, this is also my place. This is where I can go. I'm free to come here. I'm free to bring my friends. I'm free to bring my family here during normal working days, of course. But actually, it's my place. So I'm welcome here anytime. It's not something that is very sacred or anything. No, it's here to be used by the LEGO employees because you learn something new every day when you come here.
That's so fantastic. So if we walk in here then, I think people will...
Then you can ask again, what building is this? This is no building. It's another connection.
In between space.
This is another connection building. So we are walking into the first administration building. This is not it's built in two sections, and this is actually the later section. It's 2 stories, and it was started in 1958 when the family home became too small. The family lived in that part where we just left, and then they built this to have international meetings here. And actually, like we do today when our sales companies come back to Denmark to see what are the products we're going to launch next year, this was actually the same purpose of this building, actually, that people would come here and see what are the products that is supposed to be launched next year. And we can move down here, then I can show you how it looked. So if you look at that picture, that is actually from the next room, where you can see the sales companies are sitting here, the owner is sitting here in the middle, and you would have this global map.
I love this. It's such like a great like strategy table shot here. It looks like something from like World War II or something like
it's
that.
From 1958-ish. And you could smoke at that time, so you will find ashtrays all over the place here. And actually the new products are then put into the cases here. So that's how it looked originally. When we move into the next room, you can still see these lights, and the columns are still here.
Okay, so you preserved the kind of core aspects of it like that.
Yeah, it's a building. It's part of the building, so that we did that. It's actually a very modern building because it's actually built so there's nothing to support it. There's just 2 walls supporting the whole building from being able to collapse. So it was very modern style when it was actually built, and built in sections, so you can redecorate it all the time, so you can move walls around. So it's pretty modern building. You cannot see it from in here because we now hit the whole building. It's gone because this building has more than 50 windows. And if you want to create an exhibition, 58 windows in a square is not good because the sun will move like that. So you cannot you cannot work with the lights.
Right,
so
you're just hit with too much. You walk in and you're like, what am I supposed to be doing?
Yeah. So this is actually a way we decided to recreate the room. You cannot see the room; it's still here, behind these walls. But actually, you walk and follow the walls, so you really don't notice the building in here.
But it's a great kind of curved wall effect, and we'll see this as we keep going and everything. And so it keeps it interesting. It's not like you're just walking along one straight wall the entire time.
You cannot see from one end to the other. That's not possible because it is a curved wall. So you have to walk with the wall to see everything. You cannot see it. Again, this is museum history. Never be able to overlook everything in one, because then you see nothing.
I really like that. And then you've throughout this here, you got these central kind of pod areas as well. So is that something you kind of move around on a basis? Or obviously those are mobile.
No, we actually put it there, and we have Lego City as a dominant podium throughout, so you can actually see how it has evolved during time.
Okay.
So it starts in 55, and then we have a podium from the 60s. This is from the late 70s, 80s, and then we have from the 90s and this century. So actually you can see how the products have evolved, and seeing how it's gone from not being collected in the other room. Now it has plates that actually sort of frames the city. And then actually the buildings, the Lego model starts getting bigger. So you can actually see how it evolves. And this podiums are very important, because this is an important milestone in the Lego Group history. That's when we start producing themes. So we actually add the themes. So you can actually see, okay, here we do something new. So it's on purpose that we have created these. So they're very stationary here.
Yeah, but they add a lot to it here. And so this year, if I'm not mistaken, is the 60th anniversary of the Lego brick.
Yeah.
So was there anything in particular special that you added or did anything in the museum here for that?
No, we updated everything on this side.
Okay.
On the side with a lot of lights, we actually updated it in order to also get the more recent history into the museum.
That's great. So you took this as a good opportunity to be able to kind of make sure everything is staying up to date and it looks as good as possible.
Yeah, we do. Because there's nothing worse than having a timeline that ended 10 years ago. Then you know it's an old exhibition.
The kind of dates you can immediately tell when it was put in.
Yeah, you can. And that's not good. So we have to update it on a regular basis. Also because recent history is difficult, because you don't know what actually is going to frame the history of 2016, for instance. So you can guess, but in 5 years' time, you know what it was. So let alone for that reason, you have to update it very often in order to get what is the history. What is not just something happened that year, but what frames the history. Which is important, because this is selection. This is not the complete Lego history. We already selected things we wanted to tell, seen from today's view, basically. So it's actually always a selection that you have to work with. You know that as well.
For sure, yeah. And so talk about one element of Lego building, as well as certainly museum work, is upkeep and keeping things like dust free and just making sure that they don't look like they've been sitting there for 50 years and no one's touched them. Yeah. So what is that process like here? You've got a lot of Lego sets, you've got built sets, boxes on display, you've got stuff behind glass. What is that like for you and the team here?
We work a lot with cleaning these podiums, for instance, because if you're not allowed to touch the products, you have to touch the podiums. So we have a lot of fingers on the podiums all the time. So we have to clean it a lot often, very often. We have to clean the podiums. We have to remove the dust, because there's a lot of static electricity here because of these acrylic cases we have. So there's a lot of things that it needs to look Lego quality style, you could say.
Yeah, keep it up with the rest of the products and what people expect from Lego.
Yeah. The high quality thing.
For sure, I love that. So now we're getting towards the more modern section today. Oh yes, is there another room over here?
Room.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Oh.
Secret room. I can't pass up on the secret room.
No, there is a secret room here. We have several secret rooms, but you can see one now. Because it is curved, actually, we have all these little areas behind the scenes where we actually use them for special exhibitions. And this is brand new, because next year, it's 20 years ago, we launched Lego Star Wars products. So this is actually celebrating 20 years of Lego Star Wars, you could say. So it's brand new.
Yeah, it looks like it. I love the design here. You've got like the control panel almost there, and then back here you've even got, looks like almost a timeline of certain Star Wars sets.
Yeah, it's a timeline of certain Star Wars sets, because obviously there are classics that we've done a numerous time, and you can see them. It's still the same product, it's still the same spaceship, but in different versions, and how we developed that particular spaceship, for instance.
Now, if you can maybe use this room as an example, talk about kind of the team that works here at the museum and in the Idea House, how many people kind of work with you and how what that process is like when you're working on, say, a new exhibit room like this.
We don't create it ourselves. We have a company that actually works with museum to create this, but it's basically our ideas coming back and saying we have this space, we have this bag of money, and this is what the story we want to tell. And now with the Star Wars room, we already decided we wanted this this layout basically. So what they did was accommodate and draw it, so actually we could produce it to look like this. So actually it's a long process going on. And we are 13 people in the Lego Idea House, where 5 are working in our archives. So they're obviously, when we create an exhibition, and it's a teamwork, because everybody has to contribute with facts, with products, with design, with layout, with setting up, with creating labels, whatever you need. So it's a huge teamwork to create this, actually. And we have talked a lot to the Star Wars designers as well, saying we want to create this. Would this be okay? And in this case, we asked the Star Wars designer, what is your favorite set? In order to get something new and get more a feeling of a designer in here. So every set, not all of them, you can come along, but we selected sets that are designer's choice. So they here explain, why do I find this particular set should be here? So it's actually a designer's choice, a selection. And then some we wanted here as well.
Right, but that's fantastic. So you get that input from the design, the people
Yeah.
who worked on these sets themselves, and why they feel this is an important part of, say, Star Wars history.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
So that's new, that we put the designer, make the designer visible in the exhibition. Usually the design of a set is also teamwork. So this is the designer for the set, but you could have asked the marketing people or the sales people or anything, but in this case we wanted to ask the designers about it.
Yeah, that's great. I love hearing about both, your team here at the house and then also the designers, because it's so easy to look at these finished products, whether it's a Lego set or walking through the museum exhibits here, and forget that there was so much thought and how many people went into all of those different jobs you listed off, even things just like setting up all these sets and everything here. So I think it's really important to keep that in mind as you're going through and realize how much time and thought was put into all of these different exhibits.
Yeah. It looks obviously when you're done, but there's a lot of thought going into preparing it, actually, and there's a lot of ideas you have to see. Also because, again, you have a room available, and you have that room, and how do you get the best use of it, of the space you have, actually, because this could be much bigger, but we don't have bigger rooms, so we have to keep this, and this is what we've got.
Sure. You work within those constraints, though. But yeah, this is fantastic. So I love how it's kind of like it's a museum within the museum here almost.
People actually love these secret doors. So that's another thing. We have several of them, but I won't show you all of them today. It should be something for coming back for.
Something stay secret for now.
Yeah. But here again, this is one of the walls actually carrying the buildings. We have 2 walls like this, and they carry the whole building. So that was new when the architect created this building. It's actually a space, but only 2 walls that actually carries the wall. Because if these walls weren't here, the building would go like this.
Okay. Well, then we're glad that those are.
So they should stay.
But again, that's, you mentioned working within a certain space. Well, that obviously comes into it. You can't just take that wall out for those reasons. So again, that's something you have to keep in mind as setting this up.
Yeah, it is. It is. We actually made it shorter. We had an engineer coming in to work with it to get it shorter, but still making sure that the house won't collapse.
Right.
But if you look here, you can see again the windows I showed you in the picture, or the upper lights and the columns, they are here. So this is actually the building you saw in the picture, or the room you saw in the picture, and the world map would be at the end.
Okay.
Again, a wall you can't see, but it's there.
That's incredible, how you're able to change the space like this. And even having seen that photo, you realize, yes, it is the same room, but it doesn't, you wouldn't really know that.
Nope. It actually, you have to see on these lights. Okay, it is here, actually, because you cannot know where it is, because we hid it.
Exactly. So then if we keep going to down here, I think this takes us to just about modern day today within.
This This is ends 2017 with a new CEO, basically. He's been here for a year, so now we are ready. He's actually saying, I can't wait to get started. But he has started for a year now, so we actually need to update this pretty soon.
There's always something going on that you just got to add more in.
You have to change it all the time because, okay, in 2 years' time, people will say, oh, I can't wait to get it started. Yeah, but he's been here now for 3 years. When does he start then? So you actually have to update it. But for the employees, it's very important to know, but this is the new CEO, and this is who he is, and this is what he stands for. So actually, it's also important that it is there in the time that he came, basically, to the company.
So that's a really fascinating look at kind of the museum and how you operate there. So what is kind of your job experience before Lego or going into Lego? What was kind of your background that would you say kind of led you to this position today?
How many hours do you have?
It's complicated.
It is pretty complicated because I have a degree in art history and medieval archaeology.
Oh, wow.
And I worked with museums before, but that's not what brought me into this company. It was actually because I'm also a journalist. So I was hired into the corporate communications department and then worked in different departments, and I worked for the Lego Foundation. And then I was asked to move here and actually work with sort of revitalization of the Lego history and culture in 2005. I've been here ever since. It's still fun.
It sounds like there's a lot of variety and stuff going on, so it keeps it interesting.
Because we have a lot of people coming here. The Lego employees come here when they start. They get a 2-day sort of introduction to the company, and part of that introduction is, of course, our heritage. So all new employees come down here. We have media coming down here. We have guests of the company. Could be different kind of guests from different departments coming here. So there's always something going on down here. So it's pretty fun to be here because you learn a lot of new people to know them, with their name, who are they. But you are also telling the story, and every time you tell the story of a company, you tell a different story because you have to accommodate the story to who you're telling it to. So something might be relevant for you, something else might be relevant for somebody else. So that's always fun to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really fascinating. So then, as you know, a Lego historian and being familiar with all of this history that's here, how would you say kind of Lego's work with the AFOL community and kind of the adult fan of Lego community has maybe changed the company at all, or how have things changed in more recent years as the AFOL community has really continued to grow?
But it had changed a lot because in the 90s, you know, the story, internet brought all these adult fans together, but also Kjell and Jørgen, the owner and the CEO then, discovered that you could have a really good and deep dialogue with adult fans. You cannot have it with children. They can express what they think about the product. They can go into details, but with adult fans, you can have that deep dialogue of what is Lego, what is good, what can we do better, what is absolutely crap, which is also a learning process. Mm-hmm. So actually that direct dialogue with adult fans is very important to the company. Also, of course, we launched new products made for adult fans, which also is a whole new learning process, especially for the designers, because they're allowed to use elements in ways they're not allowed to use elements when creating for children, because stability is very important. Where fans, it's a little nitty-gritty details on a building or something like that is very fun for an adult fan. So actually it's a very good way of using also all the elements we've developed in new ways. So I think it's very important. But we do have put up some stories about the adult fans because it's very important also to the Lego employees that doesn't have this direct dialogue to know that there's a whole new community out there. It's all about children, but it's also about children that maybe are a little bit older than a child normally is. Mm-hmm. And you are a child till you're 99, basically.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to take us through the museum here and tell us about your work in the Lego Idea House. This is so fascinating. I just love learning more about the process here, so I really appreciate it. Thank you.